All right, guys, let's keep going on this review here. Okay, for the first couple of questions, we're just solving linear equations, right? Okay, so first do any distributing that you need to. That gives me plus 48 minus 12, right? Then you're going to combine together anything on the same side that has like terms. So 3 minus 12 is going to give me negative 9p plus 48. And then I just go about solving this. Subtract 48. Okay, you guys can use calculators on this. I've got mine pulled up because it's too late in the day to be able to do 120 minus 48 in my head. 72. Okay, and then I divide by negative 9. That divides evenly. That's awesome. P is negative 8. Okay? With these linear equations, you don't really have to check for solutions on any of them. Alright, they're just going to work. Okay. For this one, let's go. 6 minus 3 equals, so when I distribute that, negative 5. I distribute that, positive 10x minus 4. Minus 4x. There we go. Combine any like terms on the same side, so I'm going to combine those. So I get 6x minus 3 equals negative 5 plus 6x. Now, we know that we get the x's on the same side. And the problem is what happens there is I get a statement that is not true. That is a false statement. Okay? If you guys see a false, I'll this one false one, a false statement, the answer is going to be no solution. Okay? If it's a true statement, it's a statement that's always true, the answer is all or not. Alright, great. Let's look at number 3 and number 4. Here we go. Alright, draw my little line here. Okay. Negative 10 plus t equals negative 30t minus 10. Alright. Let's get, I better plug in the variables on the same side. So I'm going to add 30 to the other side, and I get 31t. And then I'm going to get the numbers on the one side. Okay, so when I do that over negative 10 plus 10, I get equals 0. Now, this is okay. This is still going to give me an answer. I'm allowed to have 0 divided by something. My answer is just 0. Right? Okay, one more. Now, you know, I told you guys you can use calculators, so if this kind of fraction-y stuff stresses you out, just do it on the calculator. Now, what you do is you just put parentheses around it. 5 over 4 parentheses times 8 over 5 parentheses. Okay? That equals 2h. Now, listen, if you don't want to use your calculator, it's just as simple as this. 5's cancel out, 4 goes into 2, 8 2 times. So that's fine. You can do it either way. Alright. Let's distribute to here. So again, just go 5 fourths times 12, and you get 15. And the way you would do that without a calculator is just go 4 goes into 12 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Okay? Cool. Alright, on the other side, you might already notice like what's going to happen here, but 15 plus 2h. When I go to cancel out my variables, I get a totally true statement. 15 and 15 will always equal each other. This is a true statement all the time, so we write all real numbers. or infinite solutions, all solutions, anything like that I would take. It's easy to just write all real numbers, okay? So definitely look for those on the test. You'll have either a no solution or an all real numbers, maybe both. I don't know. Okay, check that out. Okay, great. Our next section is on absolute value. Now, there are a couple things that I need you to remember in this section. First of all, if you ever have the absolute value of something equals a negative, you automatically stop and you do no solution. Okay? If you have the absolute value of something equals a positive, that's great. You guys remember how we do it? We write it twice, once positive, once negative, and we find two answers. Okay? All right, let's get going. All right, the absolute value on here is already by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and write it twice here. I'm going to write 6 minus 2w equals 20. 6 minus 2w equals negative 20. And then I'm just going to solve both of those, okay? All right, if I subtract 6, I have negative 2w equals 14. So w is negative 7. On this side, if I subtract 6, I have negative 2w is negative 26. So w is 13. Okay. All right, our next one. Now, before we can break it up into two parts, we want to get, remember, these absolute value bars by itself. Okay, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 real quick to get rid of that. So I have the absolute value of r minus 5 equals 9. And then this is where I split this up into two parts. Okay? I go r minus 5 equals 9. And r minus 5 equals negative 9. Okay? When I add 5 over, I get 14. And when I add 5 over to this one, I get negative 4. Okay? All right. Good deal. Let's try this. Again, let's get the absolute value bars by itself first. Okay, when I subtract 1, all right, I have 4 parentheses 2 minus b equals negative 4. Okay, divide both sides by 4. I get the absolute value of 2 minus b equals negative 1. Typically, this is where we would go off into the two parts. And let's go here and here. Step. A little bit of a problem, right? You see how that equals a negative? I want you to keep an eye out for that. When you have an absolute value that equals a negative, you just stop right there and you just say no solution. Okay, because absolute values can never equal negatives, so we just can't solve it. All right? Okay, great. Let's take a look at this last one. Okay, first I'm going to add 3 to the other side. So I have the absolute value of 8x minus 9 equals 7x plus 3. Okay. You are going to also have a question like this on your test. So, when you have an x in and an x outside of the absolute values, all right, what that means is that there is a chance you might get extraneous solutions. Okay, it's just like the way that this works. So, I am going to still write this twice. Now, the two ways that I'm going to write it, I'm going to write 8x minus 9 equals 7x plus 3. And then I'm going to write 8x minus 9 equals, and I'm just going to make this other side negative. So I'll make it negative 7x minus 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve both. Okay? Okay, on this side, I subtract 7x over. That gives me 1x. I add the 9 over. That gives me 3 plus 9 is 12. Okay? On the other side, I add the 7x over. That gives me 15x. And I add the 9 over. Negative 3 plus 9 is 6. And then when I divide it, you'll either get a fraction. I don't care if you guys write it as, so 6 over 15, which reduces to 2 over 5. Or, if you just go 6 over 15, this will give you a decimal. I do not care if you use fractions or decimals. Remember, if you hit math 1, it'll change it to a fraction for you, but you can use either one. Okay, now this is the ones where we have to check. Let me show you guys how to check. You can go ahead and check it into the one before you split it off into 2 parts. Alright? So let me check the 12 first. Alright, and I'll just put my check over here. Okay, so let me see if the 12 works. So I'm plugging in 12 there and there. Alright, 8 times 12 is 84, I think. No, it's not. 96. Minus 9 is 87. So absolute value of 87. And then 7 times 12 plus 3 is 87. Does the absolute value of 87 equal 87? Yes, so that answer is good. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna do just 0.4. Okay, and again I'm plugging it in right here, and I'm plugging it in right here. Okay. 8 times 0.4 minus 9 is negative 5.8. Okay, 7 times 0.4 plus 3 equals 5.8. Does the absolute value of negative 5.8 equal 5.8? Yes, it does. So actually both work. Okay? The problem that you'll get if, like, for it to not work would be if, for example, you got, you know, absolute value of 10 equals negative 10. Like, that's the one, if you plug in and get something like that, it won't work. Okay? Okay, great. That's the absolute value section. Not too bad, right? All right. Perfect. So next, we move into quadratics. Okay. For quadratics, there's 3 different ways that you guys can solve them. Okay. Let's summarize these up. You can square root both sides. The big thing with that one is when you take the square root of both sides, don't forget the plus minus. You can do factoring. And if nothing else works, you can do quadratic formula. Okay, so those are your basic 3 methods. Okay, so the kind of problems that you'll do square rooting on is a problem that just has something squared, and you know everything else you can move to the other side. So for example, minus 8 on both sides. Okay, so I get 9d squared equals negative 49. Alright, divide both sides by 9. Now this problem is a little messy. I probably would give you something maybe a bit easier than this. I'm going to leave that as negative 49 over 9 and just show you how you write your answers, okay? First of all, anytime you take a square root, you're going to write plus or minus. And then you're going to see if you can take the square root of these or if you have to break them down. Well, I could take the square root of 49, it's 7. I could take the square root of 9, it's 3. And you guys, this negative right there, it just means there's like an I somewhere. Okay, so that's the answer for that. If it's something that needs to be broken down, you can break it down, but just look for negatives and square root signs. If you see that, you're going to put I on there. Okay? Alright, this next one. Now this one, I'm not going to be able to do by square rooting because when I move that over, I have a y squared, 14y, and a 12. Alright, this is going to be a factoring problem, if we can factor it. The first thing I'm noticing here is we can take a 2 out of everything. So it's y squared plus 7y plus 6. and then that actually factors really nicely. Multiplies to make 6 and adds to make 7 is 6 and 1. And then remember, you guys, we do what are the solutions. Remember, 2 doesn't have a solution because it's just 2 equals 0 is not the solution, right? But this one is going to be y equals negative 6, y equals negative 5. Okay? Let's see if we can do this one by factoring. I actually don't think we're going to be able to. Okay, so 97 is prime. Alright, so we're not going to be able to do this by factoring. Okay, if you can't do it by factoring or square rooting, you have to do quadratic formula. So you guys, let's do it. Alright, the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus. Remember, we listened to the song, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, so if I'm using quadratic formula for this, it would be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, and remember, I would tell you guys, we do this in 3 parts. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the first part, negative 14 is just 14. This next part, you can put that straight into your calculator. Be careful though, you have to put the parentheses around the negative 14. If you don't, it will do it wrong. Negative 14 squared minus 4 times 1, that was a, times c, that was negative 192, that's crazy, over 2. 192 is not a perfect square. Also, that means I have an I. But let's do this. I'm just going to use my calculator here. Divided by 2 is 96. Don't worry about the negative. We'll take that off in a minute. Divided by 2 is 48. Divided by 2 is 24. Look at this. Divided by 2 is 12. Divided by 2 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. That's crazy. So, pair, die, pair, die, pair, die. Okay, so I get 2 times 2 times 2. That's 8. Now the negative makes it I, and then the 3 is the lonely guy left over. And then remember what I would tell you guys. If all 3 of these cancel out, then you can reduce them. 2 goes into all of those. Alright, so my final answer is 7 plus or minus 4i root 3 over 1. Okay? Alright, not the best ever, but not bad. Okay, let's try this. This does not factor. If I try it, 5r and r is the only way that can split up. 1 and 1 is the only way that can split up. 5r and 1r, I'm not going to get 2. So factoring does not work. So I got to go quadratic formula again, okay? Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's my 3 parts, okay? So that's negative 2. Now here I need to go b squared minus 4 times 5 times 1, which gives me negative 16. Okay? And then, this is a perfect square though, you guys. The square root of 16 is 4. But because it's got a negative in there, it's 4i. And then we just simplify those. 2 goes into everything. 1 time, 2 times, 5 times. So my final answer is negative 1 plus or minus 2i over 5. Okay? Alright guys, here we go at the end. Okay. I'm actually going to take off number 3. Because nothing like that is going to be on this test. And I'm going to add a couple of other questions. Okay, so we've got a couple types here, guys. We've got when you just have a fraction equal to a fraction and you cross multiply. Now when I'm multiplying this, okay, I have to distribute the 6 to both sides. So it's going to be 6h minus 18. Alright, then I go across and go that way. And when I multiply these two things, guess what I have to do? You know it. We have to do the box. Alright, because I'm trying to multiply h plus 7 by h minus 6, okay? So h squared plus 7h minus 6h minus 42. Alright, and when I combine those, I get h squared plus h minus 42. Minus 42. Now I need to get everything on the same side. This is a quadratic, so I am going to be factoring this, probably factoring. So I subtract the 6h and I add the 18. So we're getting everything on the same side, okay? So I get h squared minus 5h, and what's 18 minus 42? Or negative 42 plus 18. I get 24. Okay, now that is a factoring problem. Alright, okay, so this is a factoring problem, you guys. What multiplies to make 24, subtracts to make 5, it's 8 and 3, negative 8, positive 3. So for my answer, I get h is 8, h is negative 3. And as long as they don't make the bottom 0, they're fine. And they don't. So that is all good. Okay? Now this one, I'm going to do an LCM. And my LCM is going to have a 3 in it and an n squared in it. So I multiply each part by 3n squared. Okay, on the first part, one of the n's cancels out. So I have 3n. The next part, the whole 3n squared cancels out. So I have n plus 1. And in that part, the n squareds cancel out. So I have 12. Now remember, you combine whatever you can on the same side first. So that's 3n equals n plus 13. I subtract the n over. So 2n equals 13. And when I divide by 2, I am fine with you guys leaving it as 13 divided by 2. Or you can do 6.5. Okay, that just has one answer because it was a linear. Alright, let me do this one, number 4, and then I'll talk to you about two things that we're missing off the review that we need to make sure you guys can do. Okay, on number 4, I've got to do an LCM. Well, first, this can actually factor. That factors to u minus 5, u plus 2. Okay? Which means that's what my LCM is. It's u minus 5, u plus 2. Okay? So here I go u minus 5, u plus 2. Here I go u minus 5, u plus 2. And here I go u minus 5, u plus 2. Alright, this is like a little hectic, but on this first part, you guys, unfortunately, nothing crosses off. So I've got to multiply this out. U minus 5, u plus 2. Okay, so I get u squared minus 5u plus 2u minus 10. When I combine those, I get u squared minus 3u minus 10. Okay, next term. The u minus 5's cross out, but this is really important, you guys. I am distributing a negative 1. So it becomes negative u minus 2. And then on the last part, everything crosses out, and so I have 5u squared plus 28u minus 12. Now we got to combine our like terms on the same side before I start moving things around. So it's u squared minus 4u minus 12 equals 5u squared plus 28u minus 4. Okay? I'm going to subtract that over. Going to add that over. And I'm going to add that over. Okay? So I get 4u squared plus 32u, and the 12's cancel out, plus 0. So that actually becomes something a lot easier to factor because it's just a GCF. 4u and u plus 8 is 0. So now to solve this, you guys, from that one, what do I get? Well, if I set that equal to 0 and I divide by 4, right, I get u equals 0. And then from this side, I get u equals negative 8. Okay? And that's it. All right, so the last thing that I was going to talk about real quick is we actually didn't get any radical questions on this review. I don't know why it was not on there, but I'm just going to make up a problem here. Okay, here's the first type of radical equation you're going to have on your review. All right, all you do, guys, square both sides. The radicals go away. I get 2x minus 5 equals 10 minus 3x, and I just solve it like normal. Okay? I get the x's on one side, so that gives me 5x. I get the numbers on the other side, so that gives me 15. And so I get x equals 2. Okay? The other type of problem that you're going to have is something like this. Actually, let me add something in front of that. Just like making these up, so I'm hoping I make up something good. Okay, I think this will work. Alright, we got to solve this one. So here's what we do, guys. First, subtract the 4 over. Okay, so I get 2 cube root of x plus 1 equals 8. Then divide the 2 over. So I get cube root of x plus 1 equals 4. Cube both sides to get rid of that. Now this time when I cube both sides, I get 4 cubed, which is 64. Because you got to do 4 cubed. If you're not sure how to do that, just do that on here. 4 to the third. Okay? And then, last but not least, subtract 1. And I get x equals 63. Alright? So those two types of questions will be on there. That's it. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. Alright? Okay. Great. Good luck on your test.